11:34 in the morning on this Monday in Israel. It is a historic day and you are watching history unfold. This is the Knesset in Jerusalem, the Israeli parliament building. President Trump has been invited to speak to the Knesset. He has been obviously very involved in the peace negotiations that have resulted in what you see on the banner at the bottom of your screen there. All 20 living hostages now confirmed to have been released by Hamas. Israel is releasing nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners in return, and there are the bodies of 28 hostages who died while in horrific conditions in Hamas captivity. Those bodies are going to be returned in the coming days, perhaps weeks, because it is not known where all of them are. If you're just joining us, you're looking at the Knesset. President Trump will be the fourth U.S. president to address the Knesset. He's also being given the Medal of Honor, the highest Israeli medal that can be given. That will be bestowed on him today for his role in making this deal happen. Our chief national security correspondent.
Hey, welcome into Kratos Media. Really appreciate you rolling up on quite the Monday. We have been talking about this for the last 3 days. I think people have been sitting on the edge of their seat wondering, will it get there? Will it take place? Will it actually hold? We learned last week that Trump had finalized a peace deal, that all sides had agreed. Israel, Hamas, all of the surrounding Arab Muslim nations, everybody was in. And Monday was the day. All of the hostages were to be released on Monday. And here we are. And we have exactly that. The breaking news this Monday morning is that all living hostages have been released and are back in Israeli custody. They are back. Some of them are already with loved ones. The last 13 by this point are probably out of the hospital that they were helicoptered to in Tel Aviv. So all 20 living hostages have been repatriated to Israel. This is an amazing day. It's an amazing day for Trump. It's an amazing day for the Middle East. It's an amazing day for the world. And I really appreciate all of you rolling up and joining me this morning as we celebrate something that is worth celebrating. The end, the potential long-term end of this conflict. But right now, there is no shooting. Right now, there is no war between Israel and Hamas. There might be some death in Gaza, but right now it looks like that is being perpetrated by elements of Hamas on its own Palestinian people, which is very sad. But in terms of the war between Israel and Hamas and the destruction of Gaza, that right now has come to an end. The hostages have been released. Israel has released 2,000 Palestinian prisoners. They have withdrawn to the preordained lines that they were set to, and everything is going according to Trump's peace plan. This is absolutely amazing. We're going to dive back into this Fox News coverage. We've got clips of Trump addressing the Knesset, only the fourth president to do so ever. This is amazing stuff, and I really appreciate everybody rolling up. Just want to give some shout outs. Thanks so much. Dick Van Wieringen, really appreciate you rolling up. Thanks for being here. Combined Effects in the house. And Lisa in the house. Thanks so much. You guys are awesome. Really appreciate everybody being here. Yes, Combined Effects. The evil Hamas they're not going to go away quietly, I don't think. But right now, they're not shooting at Israelis. Right now, they think they're shooting at some people they deemed collaborators. I think this is the death spiral, the final gasps potentially of a tyrannical regime, because Gaza will not be administered simply by the people who are remaining there. For the meantime, according to Trump's peace plan, Gaza will be administered by an international board headed by Trump himself and backed up by Arab Gulf money and Arab security forces. So I think we might actually see the end of Hamas in Gaza. Now, will they pop up somewhere else? That remains to be seen. Will they fold into Hezbollah or the Muslim Brotherhood and try to wreak havoc on the West Bank? That is quite possible. But as of today, all 20 living hostages have been released. They have been repatriated to Israel, which is phenomenal news. So let's dive back in to this report from Fox.
Jennifer Griffin is in Tel Aviv. She joins us now live. Jennifer.
John, it is an extraordinary moment here in Israel. We've just confirmed with the IDF that all 20 Israeli hostages, all 20 living hostages have been released by Hamas. The last 13 are in the hands of the Red Cross. They are making their way to the IDF checkpoint right now. The IDF is still in 53% of the Gaza Strip. They had pulled back to that line, that ceasefire line, as part of the agreement. These last 13 hostages, some of whom had already been making phone calls and video phone calls with their parents and their spouses and their loved ones at the base in Re'im from their Hamas captors' phones while they were waiting for the Red Cross. The Red Cross then went through medical checks. They identified all 13 of the Israeli hostages, and now we can report that that convoy is on its way to meet the IDF as we speak. All 20 will return to Israel shortly. We have seen preparations at the Re'im base outside the military helicopters, which will bring the hostages to the three hospitals here in Tel Aviv that have been making preparations for the hostages, medical doctors, psychologists, care packages for the hostages who've been kept in unbelievable conditions for the last 2 years. Remarkably, we've seen photos of at least six photos of the 7 hostages who've been released. And of those...
So the hostages have been released. At this point in time, this report was about 3-4 hours ago. So they are either at the Tel Aviv hospitals or have already been released from the Tel Aviv hospitals. We do have some images, which is absolutely amazing to see, of reunions already happening in Israel. This is phenomenal stuff. Here we go.
אתה חייב לשתות קצת, נשמה, טיפה טיפה. הוא ביקש לשלוח את זה לחדשות, לשלוח את זה? יאללה, למי לשלוח?
Really, this is amazing. It's amazing to see. I wasn't sure Trump was actually going to be able to pull this off. He is a tremendous force of will, but there are some competing factions that are hell-bent on destroying each other. And combined effects, I do not disagree with you. I'm not sure that the Islamic hate will not go away. However, right now it is being tempered by more moderate forces coming out of the Gulf nations, which see this as a path to commerce and to more wealth. Now, there is an agenda underlying all of this in the Islamic world that we need to be very careful of. That is why the United States and Europe in general need to really try to get rid of a lot of the quote unquote refugees that have taken residence and are wreaking havoc in certain places. But I don't disagree with you. But I think for at least this moment, we can celebrate that there is peace in Gaza. The killing there has stopped. And let's see if we can get to a more lasting arrangement where Gaza actually gets rebuilt with Gulf money. And the Palestinians actually have a place that can transition from the provisional international governing board to more of a Palestinian state. I don't think you'll ever see the hardcore Palestinian supporters or the pro-Hamas people from the river to the sea people ever give up that mantra, because at their core, that group of extremists, they want Israel gone. They don't want Israel to have a country. They want Israel to cease to exist. You're never going to get rid of that level of hate. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But this is an amazing day. Now I've got a couple clips because Trump did address the Knesset, and it was phenomenal. His whole speech was phenomenal. I just have a couple clips that I think were really amazing. They show Trump in his element. This is great stuff. So here we dive to Trump. One of two clips, Trump addressing the Knesset. Here we go.
Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, esteemed members of the Knesset and cherished citizens of Israel, we gather on a day of profound joy, of soaring hope, of renewed faith, and above all, a day to give our deepest thanks to the Almighty God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. After 2 harrowing years in darkness and captivity, 20 courageous hostages are returning to the glorious embrace of their families, and it is glorious. 28 more precious loved ones are coming home at last to rest in this sacred soil for all of time. And after so many years of unceasing war and endless danger, today the skies are calm, the guns are silent, the sirens are still, and the sun rises on a holy land that is finally at peace, a land and a region that will live, God willing, in peace for all eternity.
Well, so I love some of the things that Trump said there. I love the way he addressed the Almighty God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Don't forget the fact that that same God came in the form of Jesus Christ in order to redeem all of this stuff. Will Israel eventually live in peace for all eternity? Yes, but I think there's going to be some hard times ahead. Sticks Bass, will Hamas be no more? No, I don't think Hamas is actually going to disappear entirely. However, in terms of in Gaza, with the International Governing Board, I don't think we'll see Hamas there. Now, Hamas leaders and Hamas members have been offered essentially, asylum. If they lay down their arms and walk away, they can be taken in by countries such as Qatar and other places. Will they reform? Like I said, will they go and join maybe Hezbollah or the Muslim Brotherhood in the West Bank, Hezbollah in the north of Israel? I don't know. That remains to be seen. Will Hamas itself go away? Possibly. Those people might fold in somewhere else. Or will Hamas try to reconstitute itself remotely and then gather more funding from Iran and other places and maybe try to make a stand in Syria or somewhere else? I'm not sure. That remains to be seen. I don't see Hamas forming again in Gaza unless they refuse to lay down their arms and go away into asylum. If that happens, then we're going to see this war kick off in earnest again. And I think the gloves will be completely off. I think Trump will simply tell Netanyahu to go end it all. So I don't know. That's I think the next biggest hurdle. The hostages have been released. The next biggest hurdle is, will Hamas abide by their part to lay down their arms and essentially walk away, the leadership, and go into these other countries in an asylum basis. That is the next big hurdle, I believe. So now I have one more clip from Trump addressing the Knesset. Again, I thought his speech was excellent. And it's not a hard speech to make at this point in time, given the events of today. And so here's the second clip, which I think is absolutely great.
This is not only the end of a war. This is the end of an age of terror and death, and the beginning of the age of faith and hope and of God. It's the start of a grand concord and lasting harmony for Israel and all the nations of what will soon be a truly magnificent region. I believe that so strongly. This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East. I want to express my gratitude to a man of exceptional courage and patriotism, whose partnership did so much.
So I thought it interesting that he says this is the dawn of the age of a new Middle East. And I believe he could be right. If they can get Hamas to take that final step, and if they can govern Gaza with an international board and actually rebuild it with Gulf money and you could make it look like Tel Aviv South. You could make it look like Dubai. all that beachfront property could be amazing. So I think this has a real chance of working. And then you gradually hand that over to a Palestinian authority, to some level of free elections or something, maybe governed, maybe backstopped by by an Arab, oversight board or something. You could potentially make this eventually become a Palestinian state where you get to a quote unquote two-state solution. And then you've essentially eliminated 80% of the resistance to Israel. You'll still have the 20% core, from the river to the sea people. You're never going to get rid of them. They have to come to their own spiritual awakening, or they have to be eliminated, from public discourse. So, they need to be shamed, run out of town on a rail, so shamed to the point that they stop talking that nonsense. But in the meantime, you could actually remake the Middle East. Now, after Trump's Knesset speech, he departed for Egypt, where he is basically on the way to meet with all of the other leaders to finalize the last elements of this peace deal. Check this out.
Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth is with him as well. And of course, Ivanka Trump, his daughter, and Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff. So I might have missed a couple, but those are the big ones, if you will. And we are watching the president head towards.
As we watch all of this, especially here, this picture of Bibi Netanyahu, he's obviously there. He could be flying with President Trump over to Egypt to participate in the talks. He has decided not to, despite the offer and invitation from President Trump. It seems to me to be very interesting that the two parties really at the heart of these peace talks will not be party to the actual Egyptian peace talks, and that specifically would be Israel and Hamas. While we don't trust Hamas, and while Hamas is considered a terror group, they are, let's just be honest, critical to maintaining the peace. Neither party will be part of these peace talks. However, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, PLO, and they will be there, which I find very interesting that PLO will be there and party to the talks, but not the two critical parties that are really at the center of these peace talks. David, am I off base here? I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
No, you're not off base, but it makes sense why Netanyahu wouldn't go. First of all, a couple reasons. One, he doesn't want necessarily the PR of him around all of the Arab leaders right now. He thinks it's too soon. But beyond that, let President Trump do the, quote, dirty work. In other words, this is about Arab buy-in. It always has been. And President Trump is in his elements there. I think Bibi being over there would be
He's absolutely right. I think Bibi Netanyahu, in a moment of clarity and actual sanity, has said, no, I'm not going to go to these level of peace talks. And there's two reasons for that. One, I think he's absolutely right. He doesn't want, proximity to the Arab leaders. He doesn't want, at this point in time, it's a little too fragile. He is not liked by anybody in the game over there. Trump is. And Trump has essentially put Israel in a box. When Bibi Netanyahu tried to bomb the Hamas leaders in Qatar, that's when Trump turned around and put the hammer down on Israel and said, you will essentially, listening to all the back channels and the people, on the inside, that's when Trump basically said, hey, you will agree to this peace plan. This peace plan is mine, and this is what we're going to do. And if I get the Arab buy-in, you will agree to it, and I don't care what you think. And he essentially put Netanyahu in a box. And so Netanyahu doesn't need to be at these peace talks, because he's right. This is all about U.S.-Arab relations, and it's all about Arab buy-in to the plan. It's all about the Arab buy-in, literally, monetarily, to rebuild Gaza. It's all about the Arab buy-in to provide security forces. It's all about the relationship of Trump with the surrounding Arab nations to form the international governing board led by Trump that will oversee Gaza in the short term. So he's going actually with Hegseth, with Marco Rubio, to meet with all of the Arab leaders, Turkey, Egypt, Jordan. The Gulf states will be there. So this will be an amazing set of talks that are happening in Egypt to essentially get to the next stage of the deal. Now, the fact that Hamas is not there, is somewhat interesting. Now, I think they seem to have delegated to the PLO. And part of the reason is, Hamas, I think some of their leaders are hiding out. They don't want to get, arrested, killed, you name it. I think they have some of those fears, but this is very interesting because right now, with Trump essentially putting his foot on Netanyahu and the Israeli government, the only people that can really derail this, that would have any vested interest in derailing it, is Hamas itself. So we will see how this plays out in Egypt over the next 24 to 48 hours and how it plays out with Hamas. So really appreciate everybody rolling up so far. Thanks so much for being here with Courageous Media on the Chris Highland Show. Please smash that like button for me. It really helps us out in the YouTube algorithm if you hit that thumbs up. If you subscribe, if you haven't already, to the channel. And if you have subscribed, please check your notifications. Make sure they're on. YouTube loves to turn them off so that you know when we drop new content. But really appreciate everybody being here. Now, I want to roll to our next story because this happened in the midst of Trump's peace plan, and it's occurring on the other side of the world. So let's dive in with the newest from China. This is crazy stuff. All right, here we go.
China called US President Donald Trump's latest tariffs on Chinese goods hypocritical on Sunday and defended its curbs on exports of rare earth elements and equipment. Trump on Friday responded to Beijing's most recent export controls by imposing additional tariffs of 100% on China's US-bound exports, along with new export controls on critical software by November the 1st. The revived trade tensions have rattled Wall Street, sending big tech shares tumbling, worried foreign companies dependent on China's production of processed rare earths and rare earth magnets, and could derail a summit between Trump and Chinese President Tsai Ing-wen tentatively scheduled for later this month.
So I don't know if any, so I don't think that's, so we've basically got China rattling its economic saber. Trump was set to head out to Malaysia, I believe, for talks with Xi Jinping, and the US and Chinese trade delegations were set to meet to try to get to the next stage in a complete US-China trade deal. However, China decided that it wanted to, or it thought it could gain some significant leverage prior to that meeting, and possibly the timing was such to dampen Trump's popularity and power and prestige over the whole Israel-Gaza peace initiative. So they timed this announcement for these very few days, and it has not gone over well. I don't think it's happened the way they thought. My initial read is that Xi probably thought, and their trade delegation probably thought, that the U.S. wanting a deal would just knuckle under, that Trump has had enough of the volatile swings in the stock market, and they'd just be like, okay, we give in. But Trump, this is not the time to challenge Trump, and it's especially not when it feels like a backstab. It's one thing to address Donald Trump with strength, but to do it upfront to his face in the right timing. What China has done feels, and you'll see this in Trump's statement, it feels like a backstab. It feels to Trump underhanded, and Trump he will not play with that. He comes back hard. So the first thing he did was say, all right, 100% tariffs in addition to the 30. So we're essentially going to shut down Chinese exports. I'd have loved for him to go basically to 400%. Just, don't even, leave no measure to doubt. We will not accept Chinese imports, 400% tariff, done. But the other thing that he did is he started imposing export controls on the stuff that we control. Because right now, China has done, to their credit, they have done a masterful job of becoming the rare earth supplier, not because they have them all, but they have become the rare earth processing monopoly, essential monopoly in the world. So most of the rare earths, like 80% of them, go to China to get processed, and then they get exported out. Well, China is essentially imposing controls on those. And so President Trump said, nope, we're going to shut down your export economy. And he started imposing export controls on things that China needs and cannot produce. Things like software, which they don't currently have, strategic software. He's talking about airplane parts and airplanes. Most of your Chinese airlines are very heavy Boeing. If he stops the export of those parts, they can't spin up manufacturing on those fast enough. So this is going to get very ugly very fast. Now, Scott Bessent addressed this, and I thought his words were interesting because he talked about the fact that China was mistaken in how they thought Trump would respond. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Check this out. Before we get going, Lynn Sanger in the house. Sticks Baz, Tex Haynes, welcome in from snowy Montana. I wish it was snowing here in Texas, that's for sure. Sticks Baz, Fetterman's the only one right now that seems to have any sanity in the Democrat Party. Lynn Sanger in the house, really appreciate you being here. Eric Smith also. All right, here we go.
And you and I were talking earlier about these Chinese exports controls, and we have approached a relationship with China with great respect. The Chinese are very big on symbolism, and I can tell you it was highly inappropriate for them to announce these export controls on the day that the peace deal was announced and overshadow that.
And I'm wondering if that was by design, Secretary. I mean, the Chinese government doesn't do anything by coincidence. I mean, the fact that President Trump has clinched this incredible peace deal, and they come out in the middle of all of this last week on Thursday night and say, oh, we are going to be tightening our restrictions on rare earth minerals, knowing that this is one of the cruxes of the fight between the two nations, does not seem coincidental to me. Your thoughts?
Well, Maria, it could have been for several reasons. One, that the Chinese economy is doing very poorly, and maybe they're trying to take focus off of that. Two, China, as opposed to the United States is pushing for peace in the world. China is financing war. China purchases of Russian oil is financing the Russian war machine. They purchase Iranian oil, and we have been calling them out on that. So maybe it was to distract from that. And three, maybe it was a mistaken attempt to try to gain leverage before the two leaders meet in Korea in October. And I can tell you, trying to get leverage in front of a meeting with Donald Trump is a bad idea. And he turned the tables with his two very good tweets on Friday, talking about raising tariffs and implementing in any sanctions that we need to.
Yeah.
Right now, the governing thought, at least in the U.S. administration, is that for every monopolistic lever that China has, the U.S. has two. So the first two that Trump deployed over the rare earth export were export controls on strategic software and airplane parts, or the ones he talked about. So this is going to get very interesting. Now, I am with you, Reppins 12. This is what I voted for. I want China put in a box, and I want them disentangled from our economy. We need to repatriate manufacturing. So the things that we absolutely need to repatriate to America, and it's already in process. Semiconductor manufacturing, we need to make sure that all of our steel is manufactured here. We need to make sure that all of our pharmaceuticals are manufactured here, and we need to do our rare earth processing in America. Those are some of the strategic industries that have to happen here in the United States. Automobiles as well, because as rises and falls the automobile manufacturers and the auto industry, so does the U.S. economy in general. Now, beyond that, we need to disentangle from China. The rest of the manufacturing that China seems to do that is very prevalent is a lot of cheap consumer manufacturing. We don't need any of that. I mean, if that becomes very painful for a period of time, okay, fine. People can stop buying plastic crap. Because right now we still have manufacturing of electric utility components here in the United States, even though a lot of those, China has been the low-cost supplier of those for a while. But we need to disentangle. China is our adversary. China wants global domination, and we need to deny them that by reclaiming our status as the lone superpower in the world, both militarily, economically, manufacturing, and trade. We are the largest consumer economy in the world, and because of that, we have leverage that no other nation has. We need to use that to repatriate our manufacturing to America, rebuild our middle class, and basically insulate ourselves from some of the levers that other nations try to use in the global economy. Now, we can certainly allow countries to do business here. We can allow them to manufacture in their own country and export here as long as they pay the tariffs, basically the 15% market access fee that's become the norm. And all of that will lead to American prosperity and American dominance while we still build things in America and repatriate American manufacturing jobs for our middle class. So I am all in favor of this. I want Trump to essentially decouple us from China as quickly as possible. And if that means that we couple, that we build much stronger trading relationships with a myriad of nations, Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, India, Malaysia, you name it. At the same time, Trump is also trying to navigate this situation with Ukraine and Russia, and the fact that China and India are buying, and China and India mainly are buying Russian oil and energy, which continues to fund Russia's war effort. We need to come down hard on both of them and say, no, as long as you're buying that, you're not selling into the US consumer market. Our 39% of the global consumer market, if you think you can sell a whole bunch of stuff everywhere else, go have at it. But we need to use that leverage, the same leverage that Trump has used to get 8 peace deals. And so final clip, I just want to dive into Trump's very long, lengthy tweet that happened when this all took place. We're not going to read this whole thing. So some very strange things are happening in China. They are becoming very hostile and sending letters to countries throughout the world that they want to impose export controls, even if it's not manufactured in China. Nobody has ever seen anything like this. It would essentially clog the markets and make life difficult for virtually every country in the world, especially for China. We have been contacted by other countries who are extremely angry at this trade hostility, which came out of nowhere. Our relationship with China over the past 6 months has been a good one, thereby making this move on trade an even more surprising one. I have been proven right. I've always felt like they are lying in wait, and now, as usual, I've been proven right. There is no way that China should be allowed to hold the world captive, but that seems to have been their plan for quite some time, starting with the magnets and other elements that they have quietly amassed into somewhat of a monopoly position. It's rather sinister and hostile, to say the least, but the U.S. has monopoly positions also, much stronger and far more reaching than China's. Namely, we have the monopoly on the world's consumer market. Number one. Things that are routine are no longer routine at all. I have not spoken to President Xi because there's no reason to do so. This was a real surprise, not only to me, but to all the leaders of the free world. I was to meet Xi in 2 weeks at APEC in South Korea, not Malaysia. But now there seems to be no reason to do so. And then Trump hammered him with the tariffs and with the export controls of our own. So we'll see how this plays out. But this is what I voted for. I want us decoupled with China. Let me know what you think in the comments. We don't need to be dependent on China for anything. Hey, if we want to get some low-cost options from China, sure. But only if we have American manufacturing to back it up. Eric Smith, oh, you don't want snow in Texas. I love snow in Texas. Yes, nobody can drive it. Hell, I can't even drive in the rain. But that's beside the point. Talisha Clark in the house. Really appreciate everybody rolling up. All right, we got one more story that we've got to get into, and that is the Virginia governor's race, which is heating up and changing as we speak. We're going to dive into some debate clips because this has become the focal point. This debate is actually the pivot which might send a Republican back to the Virginia governor's mansion. Check this out as we dive into this. Please smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you like the content, please share Courageous Media with everybody that you know, and let us know that you're here in the comments. Here we go.
Thank you, Ms. Spanberger. I didn't hear an answer there on the endorsement issue, so I want to just make sure. Will you continue to endorse Jay Jones to be the next Attorney General of Virginia? And were you aware of these text messages before they released? You have 30 seconds.
In fact, it appears that it was those who released the text messages and held them for years. So the public was unaware who had knowledge of these text messages for many years.
What did you do about it?
I learned of these text messages the day that they came out, and I denounced them as soon as I learned of them.
She denounces murder.
And importantly, at this point, as we move forward, the voters now have this information that was withheld for them,
you're running to
presumably for
Ms. Earl
political
Sayers,
reasons. But the voters now have the information, and it is up to voters to make an individual choice based on this information.
Ms. Spanberger, I understand what you're saying about the voters, but for you yourself, do you still continue to endorse Jay Jones? 15 seconds, yes or no?
We are all running our individual races. I believe my opponent has said that about her lieutenant governor nominee.
Ms. Earl Sayers,
and it's up to every person to make their own decision. I am running my race to serve Virginia, and that is what I intend.
The Virginia governor's race is getting very interesting. Why? Because Spanberger, the Democrat nominee for governor, who has purported herself to be a moderate, is showing her true colors, that she is not moderate at all. She is extremely left. She is a complete and utter lunatic. She is a nutcase, and it's coming down to two primary issues. What you saw there was, if you didn't see our video on Jay Jones, which we did last week, the Democrat nominee for Attorney General, Jay Jones, had a text exchange with a Republican Virginia state representative talking about a former Speaker of the House of Virginia. And Jay Jones literally called for that man's execution and for the execution of his 2-year-old and 5-year-old children. Obviously, the internet blew up over this. And there were calls for him to resign from multiple places, even from some Democrats. However, what we have learned in the weeks since then is that Jay Jones has not lost a single endorsement, not from the Virginia Teachers Union, not from any of the other Virginia Democrat organizations, and certainly not from Spanberger, who has quote unquote condemned the texts, but not the man who sent them, who has not called for the man who sent the text, who called for the execution of his opponent to drop out of the race. This man is running for the top law enforcement officer in Virginia and has no place being there, given the fact that he was calling for the death of a political opponent merely for the views that they subscribe to, merely for their political positions. And not only that person, but also their family and children. And so what you saw with Spanberger, no less than 4 times obfuscate and dodge the question. She would not say that she withdraws her endorsement from Jay Jones. She is continuing to endorse a man who has called for political violence in a text string, who has called for grotesque political violence. This is who is running for running for governor as a Democrat. Now, I want to dive in. We're going to check out the Republican Winsome Spears' response to this, because I think it's excellent. This was one of her strongest points in the debate. I want you to check out Winsome Spears' response to this nonsense coming from Spanberger. Here we go.
Jay Jones advocated the murder, Abigail, the murder of a man, a former speaker, as well as his children who were 2 and 5 years old. You have little girls. What would it take him pulling the trigger? Is that what would do it? And then you would say he needs to get out of the race? Abigail, you have nothing to say? Abigail, what if he said it about your 3 children? Is that when you would say he should get out of the race, Abigail?
So, absolutely amazing stuff. Look at that face. So here you've got Abigail Spanberger smirking, smiling, refuses to look. Winsome Spears is turned. She's looking directly at Abigail Spanberger saying, hey, what's it going to take for you to withdraw your endorsement for this murderous thug? The fact that he's going to actually have to commit homicide for you to unendorse him? Or was that not enough? And you've got Spanberger over there smirking, looking like a complete, entitled, smug fool. This is changing right before this debate. The Virginia governor's race was all but lost. The margin of the polling was well outside the margin of error, even beyond the number of quote unquote undecideds out there. So this was looking very bad for Winsome Spears. But now this is tightening. This is almost getting to be a dead heat. There is an opportunity for Winsome Spears to actually take this race now, because Spanberger is so elitist, so extreme, and so disgusting. Now, the other issue that's driving this, the Jay Jones, political violence text and her refusal to unendorse him is one. The other thing that is fueling this change in the race is Spanberger's view and her policies on LGBTQ, and specifically boys in girls' locker rooms and boys in girls' sports. So check out, we've got a clip on that I want to show, because this is going to get very ugly for Spanberger, because she is such an extreme goofball and she has no ability to actually talk on this.
Again, the question was, should transgender girls who are biological males be allowed to use girls' bathrooms and play on girls' sports teams in K through 12? You have 15 seconds to clarify.
In cases across Virginia, I think it's incumbent upon parents and educators and administrators in each local community to make decisions locally.
That's what this is about.
Ms. Earl Sears?
There should never be nude men in locker
Oh, my goodness,
rooms.
we finally have her saying that, but you voted for that.
Ms. Earl
Have
Sears.
you finally
My opponent
Ms. Earl
said
Sears,
that
you are
now?
just intruding on
Are
time
we in
here. We're
agreement
trying...
now? Are you
Ms.
going
Earl
to
Sears,
tell?
This is Ms. Spanberger's time. I have a follow-up question for Ms. Spanberger. Would you rescind the Youngkin administration policy requiring boys and girls to use bathrooms aligning with their biological sex? You have 30 seconds.
My priority would be to ensure that local communities, importantly parents and teachers and educators, are able to work together to meet the unique needs of each school and each community. And that is important. And I say that as a mother of 3 daughters in Virginia public schools.
Exactly.
And as someone who used to investigate crimes against children. The way that we keep our children safe is by ensuring they are safe in schools, which includes funding law enforcement and public safety.
But Ms. Spanberger, the question was, would you rescind the Youngkin administration policy requiring boys and girls to use bathrooms aligning with their biological sex? You have 15 seconds to clarify that question.
Yes,
and my answer is that in each local community, decisions should be made between parents and educators and teachers in each community. It shouldn't be dictated by politicians.
So the answer is yes. She would absolutely rescind that policy. It took them on these 2 issues. It took the moderators going again and again, reclarify 30 seconds, reclarify 15 seconds, reclarify 15 seconds. And in both cases, all you got from Abigail Spanberger was obfuscation, dodge, word salad, dodge, obfuscation. It was absolute nonsense. But when you got down to the crux of the argument, she absolutely will endorse a homicidal lunatic, Jay Jones, for Attorney General, and she will absolutely allow men in women's locker rooms. The only thing she was willing to say is there should not be a naked man in a woman's locker room. But I'm going to rescind the policy that prevents that from happening and basically allow a whole bunch of individual liberal school districts to kind of do whatever they want, and I'm not going to stand in their way. This is what you're getting from Abigail Spanberger. And I thought that Scott Jennings put this is probably the shortest soundbite you're ever going to hear, but he absolutely crushed it with this. He was on a podcast and he nailed it right about this issue. Here we go.
If I can't trust you not to put a boy in a teenage girl's locker room, how will I ever listen to your plan for taxes and the economy?
Right.
I will not, because I've already concluded you're a lunatic. Yeah. If I can't trust you not to put a boy in a teenage girl's locker room, how will I ever listen to your plan for taxes and the economy?
Right.
I will not, because I've already concluded you're a lunatic.
And Abigail Spanberger is a lunatic. Now, Winsome Sears, to her credit, actually went on Fox and clarified a lot of her rebuttals that she had in the debate. And this is the type of stuff that is now turning this whole race on its head. Check this out.
Tell you how I see it. There are parents who simply want their girl children to have the privacy and the respect of their personal spaces. And you have someone like Abigail Spanberger, my opponent, who has voted. She didn't just support, she voted that boys would be able to be in the locker rooms, full frontal, nude. And that's not what the parents want. In fact, she has voted against the Parents' Rights Act, which simply said this: if you're changing the curriculum, I as the parent need to know. If there's violence in the schools, I as the parent need to know. If you're doing political ideology, I need to know. If my child is transitioning and you're helping, I need to know. Simply put, I am the child's parent and I need to know. Now, the media, the mainstream media, isn't holding her feet to the fire on that. They're letting her go with some word salad that she recently said, which makes no sense, of course, but I am holding her feet to the fire. She's running away from her record. Well, she can run, but she cannot hide.
Absolutely. And remember, Virginia is the place where there were at least 2 incidents of SA, of actual assault by a quote unquote transgender female, so a biological male who assaulted a female in a bathroom or a locker room. There were 2 cases of that were covered up by the school district. They weren't, until they were found out and made public, no one was going to prosecute them. This is in Virginia. This is the same Virginia that Abigail Spanberger basically wants to go back to. Let's throw everything under the rug. Parents don't need to know anything, and we will transition your children without you knowing, and we will let them dress in women's locker rooms, and there will be no safe spaces. There will be no women's sports anymore because it'll all just be infested with low testosterone men who can't compete in regular sports. That's where this is going, and it is absolutely having an effect on the governor's race. Creppins 12, you are in Virginia. Oh boy. So would love to hear your thoughts on this because this is going to be a real mess if you get Abigail Spanberger as your governor and Jay Jones as your attorney general. But in the meantime, the good news is that the race is actually changing, that this thing is turning on its head right now. Now, 2 latest polls I want to go over. So this was as of 4 days ago. Abigail Spanberger is up by 4 points. Now, she was previously up 7, but this is with almost 6% still saying they're undecided. So right now she's up by 4 with 6% undecided and well within the margin of error because of that 6% undecided. So we've got it. There's an opportunity here. Now, check this out because there was a separate poll that was released a couple days later. This is the Trafalgar Group statewide election. So right now it's even narrowed from there to 47-45 with 1.7 going for a third party candidate and still 5.6 undecided. So well within that undecided band. Meanwhile, you've got the lieutenant governor race, and then you've got the AG race, where Jay Jones is now losing to Jason Miyares. So there's some good news in the Virginia polling in the upcoming election, but we need to make sure. One of the problems is that although I like her as a candidate, Winsome Sears has not run the greatest campaign. And that's why the door has been open to Spanberger to even get in there in the first place. Remember, this is Virginia that elected Glenn Youngkin. Now, Virginia has been solidly blue for quite a while in a lot of their national, in the national elections. But they did elect Youngkin, and we need to get them to elect Sears now, Winsome Sears. So we've got good news in the polls. I would love to see Pressler get in there, see if we can flip Virginia back red again. Let me know what you think in the comments. Reppins 12, you used to work in Fairfax. Okay. Wow. All right. So Linsparg, margin of error. So maybe Winston can pull ahead. Let's hope so. Let's absolutely hope so. Because we cannot let another radical, quote unquote, moderate get into another state house office. Hey, let me know what you think in the comments. Really appreciate everybody rolling up. You guys are awesome. Fantastic audience. Smash that like button for me. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share Courageous Media with everybody that you know so that we can get ahead of this YouTube algorithm. It really helps us out. And if you're willing, please join us as a member on YouTube of the Courageous Army. Support the channel. Thanks so much for being here. Have a great Monday. Till I catch you next time. God is good and he is sovereign. It'll all be good in the end.